Many thanks for staying with us. This is the broadcast of the International News and Atlantic Television Network. We are open for adverts, placements, bookings, and commercials. And you can connect with us and watch us on ATN Socials, Facebook, and YouTube. It's Atlantic Television Network. Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1. X, formerly Twitter, Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. And now to the rest of our stories. A SpaceX capsule sent to bring back 2 astronauts stranded on the International Space Station ISS has docked. The Dragon capsule, which has 2 empty seats for Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, docked at 17:30 Eastern Time. The pair arrived at the station on Boeing's new Starliner capsule for an 8-day mission in June, but were forced to remain there because of a fault discovered during the flight. They are now expected to return to Earth in February. The Dragon capsule, carrying NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gubunov, launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida on Saturday. The launch was delayed due to Hurricane Helene, causing destruction in the U.S. and Florida. The docking occurred as the space station flew 265 miles above Botswana in southern Africa. NASA astronauts Wilmore and Williams were delayed on the Starliner capsule's first test flight, with astronauts on board, causing issues such as leaks of helium and thruster issues. After months of investigation, NASA decided it wasn't safe to bring the astronauts home. The capsule had been delayed due to setbacks during development and uncrewed test flights in 2019 and 2022. NASA retired its space shuttle fleet in 2011, leaving it reliant on Russia's Soyuz craft for ISS transportation. Having 2 American companies to perform the missions has been a key goal for the agencies for some time, and in 2014, Boeing and SpaceX were awarded contracts worth $4.2 billion and $2.6 billion respectively. In 2020, SpaceX, founded by billionaire Elon Musk, became the first private company to take astronauts to the ISS. Residents in southwestern Mexico on Saturday evacuated from homes flooded by the remnants of Hurricane John that ravaged the Pacific coastline for a week, bringing deadly floods and landslides that left 22 people reported dead. Mexico's poorest state, Guerrero, has seen 18 deaths due to mudslides. Meanwhile, Oaxaca reported 3 deaths and Michoacan State reported a young boy's death in a river. Hurricane John, which strengthened, arrived into Guerrero and brought torrential rain and floods to the north. John began dissipating on Friday and is no longer considered an active storm. Guerrero State Governor Evelyn Salgado shared images of emergency responders in Acapulco, a resort city, carrying out rescue operations using boats, jet skis, and helicopters. Residents with small children evacuated from flooded neighborhoods, seeking support as the city faces a second disaster in less than a year. Hurricane John's rainfall has nearly tripled the amounts generated from Hurricane Otis, which cost billions of dollars in damages and left over 50 people dead. Heavy rainfall and thunderstorms are forecast across Guerrero and parts of Oaxaca, but authorities in Acapulco say the floodwaters are starting to fall back. Shelters and kitchens have been set up and food supplies are being distributed with aid to the victims, continuing as the water recedes. Meteorologists say warmer ocean temperatures are giving more fuel to hurricanes, allowing them to become stronger, faster, and leaving coastal communities less time to brace for their blow. 8 Colombian soldiers died when the helicopter transporting them on a humanitarian mission crashed near the border with Venezuela early on Sunday, authorities said. The 8 were on a mission in the eastern department of Vichada, President Gustavo Petro wrote an X. The Air Force said the helicopter was found after research in a rural area in the municipality of Cumaribo, adding there were no survivors. Images distributed by Colombian media showed the burnt wreckage of the aircrafts in the middle of grassland. The families of the crew were receiving support while a recovery mission was underway, said the Air Force. It was not the first military aircraft crash this year in Colombia. In April, 9 soldiers were killed when their helicopter went down in the country's north, and in February, 4 others died when a Black Hawk chopper crashed en route to an airbase on the border with Panama. 5 police officers also died in February in a helicopter crash in northwestern Antioquia department. Armed groups are waging a battle for territory and power among themselves and with the military in several parts of Colombia, but they were not blamed for any of the earlier crashes. Some analysts point the finger at deteriorating military equipment as a likely cause. Mere 3 days after being elected as the new leader of Japan's ruling party, incoming Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has announced plans for a snap election on 27th of October. Ishiba, 67 years old, replaced outgoing Prime Minister Fumio Kishida as chief of the Liberal Democratic Party on Friday, following a tight race that saw him securing more votes than any of the other 8 candidates. Since the LDP has a parliamentary majority, Ishiba will be approved as Prime Minister by Parliament on Tuesday. The election, which is set to take place more than a year before it is due, will decide which party controls Parliament's lower house. Earlier in the day, Ishiba began picking government and party officials who will contest the upcoming general election with him, including 2 influential former prime ministers, Taro Aso as advisor and Yoshihide Suga as vice president. Ishiba, the Japanese leader, has won the leadership election and plans to revitalize Japan's economy, address security threats, and clean up the LDP. He has been criticized for his handling of scandals and internal conflicts, including the influence of the Unification Church within the party and allegations of underreported political funding. These scandals have sparked public outrage and damaged Prime Minister Kishida's political standing, leading to his decision not to seek re-election as LDP leader. The LDP, Japan's most popular political party, is aiming to change its stance in the upcoming presidential election, according to former leader Kishida. He emphasized the importance of transparent elections and free debate. Despite scandals, the party remains the country's most popular. The campaigning for leadership is seen as an audition for the general election. Suga from K-pop boy band BTS has been fined 15 million for driving an electric scooter while intoxicated, according to media reports. The singer, whose real name is Min Young-gi, was indicted in August after police found him trying to get up after falling off the scooter near his Seoul home and discovered he was drunk. His blood alcohol level was 0.227%, far exceeding the 0.08% threshold, says local media reports quoting police. A district court in Seoul imposed a fine last Friday. The rapper, who also had his license revoked, apologized in August, saying he had driven home in Seoul thinking it was a close distance and forgot that he can't use an electric scooter under the influence. Although no one was harmed and no property was damaged, this is entirely his responsibility with no excuses. He also went ahead to say that he apologized to those who have been hurt by his carelessness and wrongful behavior, and that he will ensure that this does not happen again in the future. Suga faced backlash in the days that followed, with some asking him to leave BTS. K-pop idols in South Korea are generally expected to project a squeaky, clean image, though in this case, many of Suga's fans had also rallied in his defense. The 31-year-old is currently serving as a social service agent in the military, as he had been ruled unfit for regular combat duty. British Judge Nicholas Phillips has stepped down from Hong Kong's top appeals court, the 4th overseas judge to leave the city's judiciary this year. Foreign Judge Phillips, 86 years old, is leaving Hong Kong's court of final appeal after 22 years for personal reasons. He resigned after his 4th term ended, joining a long line of non-permanent foreign judges. Phillips is the 5th foreign judge to resign this year. In a statement to newsmen, the judiciary said it was grateful to Phillips for his support for the rule of law in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's judicial independence and commitment to upholding the rule of law remain largely affirmed by both serving and departed non-permanent judges, despite recent departures. Two British judges, Jonathan Sumption and Lawrence Collins, resigned due to the political situation in Hong Kong. Canadian judge Beverly McLanchling also resigned this year, as did Australian judge Maury Gleeson, who cited his age, 85 years old. Philip's departure leaves just 6 foreign judges on the CFA benches, 4 Australians and 2 from the UK. Lenny Hoffman and David Norbega, pro-democracy activists and human rights groups, have been calling on those remaining to also quit, saying their presence lends legitimacy to a legal system that has been undermined by the worsening security environment. Sumption argues overseas judges' presence isn't sustaining Hong Kong's rule of law, while Norbega supports the independent judiciary and legal profession, stating that they benefit the people and deserve support. Flooding and landslides caused by continuous rainfall have killed at least 101 people in Nepal, while 64 people are missing, officials have said. Nepal's capital, Kathmandu, experienced heavy rain and flooding, results in 101 deaths and 64 missing people. The Kathmandu Valley recorded its highest rainfall since 1970, with 240 millimeters of rain in 24 hours to Saturday morning. The death toll is expected to rise. At least 34 of the dead were in Kathmandu, according to Home Ministry spokesperson Rishiram Tiwari on Saturday. He said all divisions of security forces in the country, including the army, have been ordered to help in rescue efforts. Several roads were blocked by landslides triggered by the rainfall. 3 highways, including the Key Prithvi Highway connecting Kathmandu to the rest of the country, has been blocked by landslides, and heavy equipment is being used to try to open the routes, said Tiwari. The Nepali government issued flood warnings due to massive rainfall, banning nighttime travel on highways and urging high alertness. Home Minister Ramesh Lekak said the government's priority is rescuing and helping affected people. Kathmandu experienced flooding, forcing residents to move to top floors, causing power and internet outages. The monsoon season typically ends in mid-September. Members of Jamaat-e-Islami clashed with Pakistan's security forces in Karachi on Sunday after they were prevented from marching to the city's U.S. consulate to protest against the Israeli assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader, in Beirut on Friday. Nasrallah, linked by Israel to numerous deadly attacks on Israeli and Jewish targets, had been on Israel's kill list for decades. His assassination is by far the biggest and most consequential of Israel's targeted killings in years, and significantly escalates the war in the Middle East. Nicola Gobo, a 25-year-old Victoria barrister, was reportedly targeted by police after dealing with gangland clients like Tony Mogbel. Her lawyers claimed she sought a way out in a hand of friendship. Victoria police accused Gobo of grooming her as a police informant, exploiting her vulnerabilities and position to use her as a source. The killings continued in the early 2000s, leading to a desperate detective approach. Gobo's senior barrister, Tim Tobin Casey, said detectives were desperate and practice protocols went by the wayside. Taylor accused Victoria police of making promises to protect her. Taylor criticized the high-order negligence of Gobo's actions over a significant period, stating that her failure to provide police with an overwhelming amount of information and intelligence led to her being portrayed as controlling, malicious, and manipulative in the past 5 years. Taylor believes the case will focus on the power dynamics between a lonely young woman and the police force, rather than the client's past mistakes, as evidence is expected in the judge-alone civil trial. A gangland barrister claims her safety was compromised by police informer Gobo, and her unmarked skin damaged her health and career. She will give evidence remotely, with Victoria Police delivering their defense case. The Albanese government has announced British, Australian and academic Aftab Malik as the special envoy to combat Islamophobia in Australia after months of delays. Anthony Albanese announced the establishment of 2 envoys to address anti-Semitism and Islamophobia during the Gaza war. Lawyer Gillian Segal was announced as the anti-Semitism envoy, but the government announced Malik as the Islamophobia envoy. Earlier on Monday, sources confirmed to newsmen in Australia that Malik was to be appointed, with the news announced at a Muslim community event later in the evening. North South Wales Premier's Department's Malik, a former executive director of the Zaytuna Institute and U.S. Alliance of Civilization's global expert on Muslim affairs, has been appointed for a 3-year term. Malik aims to promote social cohesion and combat hate in Australia and plans to engage with Prime Minister Gillian Segal on community-based solutions. 4 others were considered for the role, including school principal Ali Kadri and community leader Jamal Rafi. Talks stalled due to concerns about representing diverse Muslim communities and criticizing government policy. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke defended freedom of religion. Marine Le Pen and other National Rally chiefs will go on trial on Monday over allegations of embezzling money from the European Parliament through fake jobs. The hearing may overshadow a record performance in July's snap parliamentary poll, which gave the RN 126 seats, potentially swaying Prime Minister Michel Barnier's minority government. Marine Le Pen, a French parliamentary candidate, has been accused of hiring assistants who worked for the party outside Parliament, with many unable to describe their daily tasks. The charges include misuse of public funds, which could result in a €1 million fine, 10 years in jail, and a 10-year bar from public office, potentially threatening her chances of claiming the French presidency. The RN has accused the investigation of persecution and political abuse of the justice system, highlighting the party's struggle to maintain its popularity. The RN capitalized on Macron's unpopularity, leading to snap elections and conservative Barnier's minority coalition. If the NFP alliance and RN join forces, Le Pen could potentially overthrow Barnier. Polls show the former protest party RN has increasing voter support. Marine Le Pen, former leader of the FN, has denied guilt and said they are not guilty of anything. The RN, which formerly supported the European Union's money, is accused of supporting a centralized system that gained momentum in 2014 due to growing FN ranks in Brussels. Jean-Marie Le Pen, 96 years old, will not appear in court due to health reasons. The party faces allegations of fake jobs and embezzlement of $2.5 million. The RN has already paid back €1 million, but insists it is not an admission of guilt. Valentino's Paris Fashion Week show featured a grand, glittering floor with smashed mirror tiles, a grand house with 500 armchairs, and a smattering of glowing lamps, marking a new era for the brand. Alessandro Michel returns to fashion's top table as Valentino, a brand he led to success with Gucci, which tripled annual revenues to $10 billion during his tenure. His signing as Valentino brings his character energy back to the center of fashion and intensifies the rivalry between Gucci and Valentino. The kooky, hippie, bearded Michel is an intriguing choice for Valentino, a house founded by Valentino Garavani. Michel combines Valentino's romance sophistication with Gucci's magpie spirit, incorporating ladylike jackets, crystal nose rings, and romantic tied gowns. Models wear veiled faces and jewel-decorated jewelry, while grown-up handbags are held with chain straps. The collection conjures a sophisticated, voluptuous iconoclasm with an enormous ego-bot's charm, drawing inspiration from Gucci's success. Valentino's designer, Michelle, showcased a collection that combines archival references from the 1970s and 1960s, creating a unique aesthetic that catches the imagination. The collection features kooky clothes, turbans, polka dot gloves, white lace ties, John Lennon glasses, and tiny ribbon bows. The show was filled with ideas and tricks that will be worn by a larger audience than can afford Valentino price tags. Michel described the collection as an enchantment of the world and expressed his work coming from his gut. British universities are urging the government to restart EU student flow after Brexit, including a possible return to the Erasmus student exchange program. However, they are adopting a watch and wait approach, recognizing the toxic Brexit's role over migration and stating that it is not in their interest for the government to intervene. Starmer has softened his resistance to a youth mobility scheme allowing under-30s to return to the EU for working holiday stints, stating that there are no plans for such a scheme, but describing the meeting as important. EU sources suggest a meeting between the EU and UK to discuss a work program for defense and security and a possible veterinary agreement. The aim is to work together for 6 months with an EU-UK summit in spring next year. The focus is on youth mobility schemes and the Erasmus student exchange program, which allowed 15,000 British students to study in EU universities before Brexit. In 2020, 17,795 students came to the UK, nearly double the number of British students who went to the EU. Universities UK suggests revisiting the correction mechanism in the Horizon Science Programme deal. Touring the British Replacement Mobility Scheme offers fresh ideas on student exchanges, allowing 4-week placements, summer schooling and vocational experiences, which could increase students' participation among disadvantaged communities. Stern argues that the EU is not requesting any changes to Erasmus and that while youth and students are central to the EU reset, they don't want to be prescriptive or a bargaining chip. The UK government has announced new rules allowing foreign nationals who have lost a British partner and are experiencing financial hardship to apply for a fee waiver when seeking settlement in the country. Currently, individuals applying for settlement after the death of a partner must pay a substantial fee of €2,885 regardless of their financial situation. This change, set to take effect on October 9, 2024, was announced by Seema Malhotra, the UK's Minister for Migration and Citizenship in Parliament. Malhotra, of Indian origin, emphasized the government's aim to adopt a fair and more compassionate approach to assist those in need. The new waiver seeks to alleviate the burden on widows, widowers and dependent children, enabling them to settle in the UK without the hefty application fee if they meet the eligibility criteria. To qualify for the fee waiver, applicants must be on family visas and demonstrate financial destitution. Eligible partners must have been in a relationship or married to someone who is a British citizen, a holder of indefinite leave to remain in the UK, a citizen of the European Union, Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, or Liechtenstein with pre-settled status. Additionally, bereaved partners of armed forces members, Gurkhas or Hong Kong military veterans discharged before July 1997 will also be eligible for the fee waiver. Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, appears to have hinted that Israel intends to mount a ground invasion of Lebanon after he told troops in the north of the country that they will use all their capabilities, including them. Gallant said that returning Israelis to their homes in the north, about 60,000, have been forced to evacuate by repeated rocket fire from Lebanon, was the mission of the IDF. He continued, he described the assassination of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah as a very important step, but that's not all. Earlier, Hezbollah's deputy leader Naim al-Qassem issued a defiant statement saying that the group would shortly appoint a replacement for Nasrallah and claim Hezbollah was still only using a fraction of the group's capabilities to attack Israel. He boasted of the range of Hezbollah's weaponry and said that the group would continue to fight. He suggested that any other organization subjected to the pager and walkie-talkie sabotage attack in Lebanon would have collapsed, but Hezbollah did not. Their attack, which killed dozens and injured thousands of others, has been widely attributed to an Israeli attempt to target Hezbollah operatives. While Israel continues airstrike in Lebanon, its assault in Gaza also continues, with 12 people, including a journalist, reported dead in strikes on Monday. Lebanon, 1,000 people are reported to have been killed, with 6,000 more wounded and 1 million people displaced from their homes by Israeli strikes. Over the weekend, Israel attacked targets in the Houthi-controlled region of Yemen, and on Monday morning there were reports of explosion in Damascus in Syria. Israel struck central Beirut for the first time since 2006, early on Monday, hours after dozens of aircrafts bombed Yemen in a long-range raid as it pursued a rapidly expanding war on multiple fronts. A Beirut strike killed 3 senior figures in the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a left-wing faction linked to 1970s aircraft hijackings. The group's military and security commanders and a third member were killed. The explosion destroyed an apartment building and left 2 bodies on the street. There was no immediate comment from Israel's military. The strike came as the UN reported that 100,000 people had fled Lebanon for Syria since the latest escalation in the war, and as newsmen quoted an unnamed Biden administration official who said the U.S. had changed its military posture in the Middle East amid concern Iran might attack Israel in response for Israel's assassination of Hezbollah's longtime leader Hassan Nasrallah on Friday. Hezbollah's deputy chief, Sheikh Naim Qassem, will make an address at noon local time on Monday, the group's Al-Mana television channel announced, the first such speech since the strike that killed Nasrallah. Details of Nasrallah's funeral have not yet been officially announced. Lebanon's health ministry said 105 people had been killed and a further 359 injured by Israeli strikes across the country on Sunday. More than 1,000 Lebanese have been killed and 6,000 wounded in the past 2 weeks, it said, without saying how many were civilians. And that's it on the international news for today. Before we go, another look at the major stories. We told you that Kenyan farmers deploy AI to increase productivity. We also told you that Marburg virus outbreak kills 6 in Rwanda. You also heard that 30 killed after hurricane swept 1 county in North Carolina. Biden approves $567 million defense assistance for Taiwan. Japan incoming Prime Minister announces snap October election. And in the UK government announces fee waiver for foreign nationals. Israel launches red strike on central Beirut. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. I am Victor Peter. Business news comes up next. Just stay with us.